for me.
Okay, we can start, Claudia. Ah no, we wait for the.
Yeah, Jean-Pierre is already here. But
Ah, he's there. Okay.
Yeah.
Ciao,
Hello.
Walter. Hello.
Oh, good afternoon.
hello, just to say hi.
Here I am.
That's
Hello,
fine.
ciao.
And you can follow us in the other link. Okay.
Okay.
Walter? You can follow us to see the audience on the other link for the live streaming. I believe you have it in your email. Okay. So. You
Okay.
can see the
Hello,
audience.
everybody, and Luisella and Giada, please come here. And so it's not easy to. My name is Luca Ricci, and together with me there is Giuliana Ciancio. We are the co-curator of this project, BeSpectACTive. Some of you already heard about it yesterday, but some others arrived today, and so very shortly, it's really difficult to summarize 8 years of common work with 21 partners. I'm speaking about all the two phases of the project. Project co-financed by the European Union since 2014 until the end of this month. And so it's not easy, of course, to summarize all the activities we did. But I would like to give you two numbers for having an idea on what was BeSpectACTive. And I hope that starting from that you can have also an idea of the political work we did with people in peripheral areas and through participation in arts. The first number is 40, and this is the number of the production of artwork we took care during these 8 years. It means that for each one of them there were at least 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 artists. So it means a lot of artists that were supported by the project, all of them working around Europe, at least in 4 different period of 2 weeks each of creative residencies in different countries, and every time trying to find specific target of local people to be engaged, to be on the side of the artists in the path of creation. And the other number I would like to give you is 3,000. It's an estimation, but I think it's almost real and probably is less than the real. I mean, the number of people that were engaged in the groups of active spectators during these 8 years in 50 different cities of Europe. It doesn't mean that all the 3,000 were engaged for 8 years, some of them for 1, 2, 3, but some of them also for 8 years. So you can imagine what it means. It's not an engagement of 1 day or 2 days. It's an engagement of 1 year each time. I mean, people that every week or 2 or 3 times per month are gathering together, discussing about art, but not only for having a general discussion that can be absolutely interesting, but for selecting something, discussing of something, putting art in the center of their everyday life. In this sense, I'm saying that this is strongly political, gathering people for discussing together of what art can change in their everyday life and in the life of their context and territories. So let me conclude saying thanks, the same institution that I said yesterday, but the audience is different, so probably it's important to say that, to Artemred, of course, for organizing this conference, and all the partners of Artemred, the University of Barcelona, of Lisbon. And sorry.
It's one of the partners, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
okay, but it wasn't organized by them.
And also the European Commission, of course, for straightening through culture the idea of creating a new citizenship all around Europe. The EASA, the agency in charge for managing the cultural project, the national desks that helped a lot of us during the activity of the project, and the national partners and local partner ministries, regions and municipalities, because each European project is co-financed by a local structure of support.
So, yeah, Again, as we were saying yesterday, it's quite emotional to be here. Also seeing our marvelous partners, all of them in front of us. And yeah, this is the last conference, the last press conference, so of course we are emotional. And I want to continue to thank you all for all the efforts put in this project, trusting in it, experimenting across the globe, across Europe, all together our ideas, analyzing different aspects and different solutions. And then I want to also thank you, Walter Zampieri, that is here, that we can see you, Walter, on the big screen here in the auditorium. Walter is the head of unit for Creative Euro Culture at the SEA. And Walter has been with us several times. The last time was in Novi Sad. There was our international conference. Then before in Brussels in person, sharing with us ideas and also being available for discussing and analyzing different aspects on which we are working on. So saying that, the idea that we had for this press conference is to have a real dialogative moment in which we will all be part of this dynamic. So we have imagined 3 main slots. The first one will be with Luisella Carnelli from Fondazione Fitzcarraldo and Giada Calvano from University of Barcelona, and they will share with us some of the results of their reflections, starting from the handbook that they have presented yesterday, also bringing some questions that have arisen over these years. So we will listen to them in 10-15 minutes, so they will be really precise, on time, speaking about the different aspects. Then we will have the pleasure to have Walter Zampieri, and again, he will bring also his statements and his perspectives from the Commission and from the Creative Euro program. And we are, again, really, we want to thank you again, Walter, for being with us after these 8 years of intense journey. Then we are very happy to have here Diego Malcangin from Euronews. So he will lead the conversation with all our partners that are here, and we will present one by one later, but we already introduced them several times, so they are all here. So discussing again about maybe what is a legacy, what we have learned. So Diego will guide, and then we have thought with Luca to close with posing us 2 questions. So Luca will pose a question to me and I will pose a question to him. We don't know what we are asking. It will be a very simple question about what maybe...
Not simple, difficult, we say.
We say difficult question, but so we don't know, and this will be our personal final closure of this emotional moment, I would say. So Luisella and Giada, thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We are very thankful, first of all, because I think that doing research during 8 years, so having a really longitudinal research approach is not that common. It's something that we are really grateful for, and having the possibility to accompany this process over these 8 years has been really a pleasure, and we are really happy to be here today. And also, this is just the last product that we presented yesterday, but we are also very, very proud of this. And this has been possible due to the research approach that we adopted during BeSpectACTive, and the decision was to use an action research approach. So action research is a research embedded in the process, so it also was a methodology that allowed to talk about participation, because in the same methodology we have a systematic process whose results are also practical and should be relevant to the organization that were involved. Action research is different from other kind of research because there is less concern for the universality of the findings, and there is a more focus on the context and in understanding the real challenges in the different contexts that we investigated. It was also useful because it's a learning by doing approach, that is an approach that we adopted in BeSpectACTive, and allowed for trial and error. So also to learn from our error, and I think it's one of the keywords, one of the important points. So why we choose this methodology? Because it allowed us to generate knowledge, and knowledge generated in practical environments, so seeing in the reality, observing what is happening. It required also this common intentionality. This is part of a participatory approach. And most importantly, for the participatory nature of action research that allowed us to create a peer learning community.
And what we understood during this 8 years journey, many things, and we try to synthesize this. The first thing is that the active participation is something complex, to quote what was saying that today Emmanuel, messy, process-based, contingent, and context-dependent. It is an holistic approach and permanent. It is a huge challenge for artists, cultural organizations, and audiences, and requires a change in the mindset of all the people involved into this process, because need to rethink our audiences no more as someone to address to, but as a partner and as a guest. This implies even a kind of reconceptualization of the cultural policies, because needs even to think on a more organic approach in seeing the relationship between the actors involved. Embarking in participatory activities implies that we need to be clear and honest about our objectives and legacy, and we need to engage ethically and authentically into the process, being aware that it is a question of sharing power, not being afraid to lose something in this sharing, but being aware that sharing power means thinking about our relevance and consistency in society. So rethinking even the role, the strategic role that culture can play in everyday lives for everyone. Cultural organizations which embrace a participatory approach should tackle even the challenge to embrace a process-oriented approach more than a result-oriented approach. Sometimes we fail, we are allowed in failing, and we can understand so much from our failures. This means even sometimes leaving to our back the notion of safe space. Sometimes embarking in participatory project doesn't mean remaining in our safe space, but going outside our comfort zone and maybe embracing a new notion of brave space. So something which challenges us every day. This means enable conflict and be porous, flexible, adaptable, and open to unexpected. This means always exercising with our listening attitude. So listen every time, always. Of course, this approach requires time and trust, because trust is required, but to build authentically trusting relationship requires time. It is a kind of loop. Even because sometimes a specific project needs to be embedded inside the way of thinking and of acting of a cultural institution. And again, this is a long-term process and not just something that can happen from one day to another. And this puts us to questioning the logic of the project that affect our way of working. Another thing that we understood is that there is no the perfect recipe to be participative, but each organization needs to find its path, its way, always according to the relevance that we want to play in our society with the whole map of the stakeholder and relating to the value we want to fight for. Active engagement and active participation are not the goal. They are tool. They are tool to achieve and to address the future challenges imposed even in these uncertain times, dealing with the urgent topic related to social cohesion, social integration, diversity, and so on, and even with the urgent topic of well-being and the relation and the importance that culture can give in terms of relief and nourishing everyone's human's lives. We understood this thanks to the pandemic, some things we positive to take off. And participation can be and can provide authentic insight for everyone, for artists, for cultural operators, for community. It's a kind of win-win process. We became changed through the process, and we always changed. This takes us to drive from the notion of empowerment to the notion of a civic commitment. These are some of the key lessons we take off, but we have some new points to discuss and to tackle for the future.
Yeah, I think that I won't go so much into the risk of instrumentalization or all the criticalities that we already debated. So I would just, in terms of future directions, I think that there are questions that maybe we have not explored so in depth during this process. So maybe it could be some bread for reflection in the view of maybe next editions or future projects regarding participation. A first important one that also regards us is leaving a legacy, right? So thinking about what will happen next. Do we want to create networks? How the community of practices will survive and in which way they will do so after these 8 years. And it will be a shame, of course, losing all the knowledge and experience that we have gathered during all this time. Another thing, of course, is a question of how to be really participatory while addressing the challenges that we're facing nowadays. I think that, of course, participation is already a very vast topic to talk about, but I would have loved also to hear more in this day, also in the conference, about maybe migration, about the war, because, I mean, we are here now, but there is a war happening in the meantime, or how a participation should also involve question of well-being, question of diversity that include also intersectionality, that this is a word that has been talked about, but maybe adding some more reflection on diversity and intersectionality while doing participation is a future direction that we may take. So yeah, the idea of representation. Another thing that maybe has not been so explored during this 8 years and could be further advanced is the work with the artist. So maybe invest in researching more on the skills or the need that artists have in this participatory process. Maybe we focus a little bit more on the organizational side and the community side, but the artist's role in this participatory approach, I think that could be further researched. And in general also, maybe overcoming the auto-referentiality that sometimes in the cultural sector we have, and opening our border and our doors also to other sectors. So maybe trying to learn how participation works by involving other sector entities in this process. So these were some reflection to maybe to launch and to see what happened in the future.
Anyway, again, thank you for this possibility of working for 8 years and to study for 8 years this process. It has been a super engaging adventure for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and also for raising some of the aspects that would be really important to think about in also future perspectives and future research. And as we were saying in some arenas, no, this also means in a way to create a shift on this idea of care. So maybe we don't need to take care of somebody, but to give the space for giving care to different and variety and plurality of interlocutors, of which we always would like to take care, but maybe giving them the power to care in a way. So we are super, super happy again to have here Walter Zampieri that I was introducing before. And yeah, for us it's a great pleasure to have you here, Walter, because as you may know, this is yeah, the end of 8 years journey. And yeah, we have passed through several events, experiences, the change also of the Creative Europe. We have really been part of the first journey of Creative Europe. Now Creative Europe is taking a new shape. There are new challenges, new ideas. So yeah, I will leave the floor to you also in a way, maybe answering in a way to some of the reflections that were raised by our research. So, à vous the floor. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Luca and Juliana, for this invitation. It's really a pleasure. I mean, I've just introduced myself very, very quickly. Walter Zampieri. I'm the head of unit for the cultural part of the Creative Europe program in the Executive Agency for Education and Culture. In previous years, I've also worked in DG Employment as a commission officials. Then I've been a head of unit for cultural policy in DG ERC. And indeed, I mean, you have a lot of work behind you, a lot of work under your belt, as they say. Luca mentioned, 40 productions, 3,000 people engaged in different cities over time. I would like to instead emphasize the fact that your work has really accompanied the reflection of the Commission and the preparation of what we did for the policy document and for the program, for the new, as we call it, Creative Europe program. What's why? I'm saying it because the starting point, if you want, of the new European Agenda for Culture was that culture has indeed a huge potential for transforming our lives and our societies. But another part of this starting point, which was quite complicated, is that there's a very low level of active participation in culture. So that's where I'm particularly interested actually with the reasoning, the line of argument that you built from within a participatory approach, from capacity building to empowerment to civic competence, which is really, I think, essential for the kind of objectives that we set for ourselves. The new program, like you actually, went through a difficult phase, because we all went through COVID. We went through everything was more difficult than usual. Physical meetings became online, performances moved online, things like that. So it was difficult for you. It was particularly difficult when you want to work with the audience, because now the question still is, where is the audience? What kind of audience are you targeting now? And have you really identified your audience? So it was really important that you went through, I would like to say, these transitions that are essential for the Creative Europe program and really for our societies, really. A key word for the Creative Europe program is co-creation as an objective. Co-creation means, of course, cooperation, means working together, but it also means, as Luca said, creation, really 40 productions, so many artists that were involved, and so many artists that were rooted in a real community. This real community means a local event but also with global resonance, the kind of things that we're discussing now, no? And this is, again, another important thing for the Creative Europe program and really for the future of culture and of our societies, I believe. Local events with global resonance rooted in a community. And you know, this one of the objectives of the Creative Europe program is exactly to support the cultural and creative sectors in the digital and ecological transitions. So this is the kind of thing that we need to reflect about. And in order to effect this change, we really need to use a participatory approach, because we really need to convince people, we really need to empower them and to provide them with this civic competence, which is, as actually our experts said, is really one of our objectives. This is why we said the new European Agenda for Culture. That's why we fine-tune, we change a little bit the new Creative Europe program. It hasn't changed that much, though, because if you look at the priority of audience, it's still there and it still remains probably the most important of the program. Actually, about 25% of all our projects continue to focus on audience. So they're really looking for the audience. They're really looking for a better relationship with the audience. They also want to work more, to work better with the audience, which is exactly what we are doing now. You mentioned about the future. Well, essential features of the future remain partnerships, and you already you built a very strong partnership. Creative Europe remains a family, it remains a super network. That's what I always say. This is how we are creating the European cultural space. And I was also particularly intrigued, actually, with your notion of a caring space. We do not care so much only for people, but in order for people to develop, in fully developed individuals, you need to provide a caring space. And that's also quite intriguing, quite interesting. This is quite of the main objectives of culture, I believe, in particular through the difficult phases where we are now. No? You mentioned well-being. You know that also the President von der Leyen emphasized that we need an action plan on mental health, also coming out of those 2 difficult and very complicated years, which are not getting any easier right now, as a matter of fact. But when it comes to mental health, again, culture and participation remains essential. This is what we have learned now about mental health for years and years of research. We need participation. We need more people to come together. We cannot get better isolated. We cannot get better alone. This is the most important thing, I mean. And that's why culture is always what we can do for the better. And the last thing I would like to say is also something else that the expert mentioned, which was that maybe you could focus more in our next phase. If you want to have a next phase, it could be about skills, for instance. And not in order to be bureaucratic, but you will have a European Year of Skills, which is coming up. So skills remain obviously particularly important. Skills are changing, they are developing. It's something also that can be particularly important, I would say, for the cultural world, which is now constantly evolving, so in constant needs of more refined skills. So what can you encourage to do? First of all, I want to congratulate you for all the work that you did, and I'm really eager now to listen to the discussion that will follow. And just one small thing to say. Well, today we launched the next call for cooperation project for 2023. So if you want to continue with your discussions, if you want to continue actually implementing also the very, very rich handbook that I can only skim through because it's really, really big. It's a big book, but extremely interesting. So please, you might want to consider to apply again to our project, to Creative Europe program. Thank you very much. And as I said, I will listen very, very carefully to what followed, to the discussion after. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Walter. Thank you very much. Now we continue with the discussion, and hopefully, if you follow us, maybe there will be also some exchanges with the partners. So, Luca,
Yeah, I would like to introduce you Mr. Diego Malcangi, please. He's a journalist from Euronews, and what we asked to Diego was to engage in a short discussion our partners that are here. So my suggestion is I don't present all of them, but in your case, guys, don't be shy, and when you intervene, say your name and the name of your organization and the country, okay? So it's easier, otherwise we have a long presentation, very boring, okay? So Diego, please, I stay with you as you want.
So I'm not part of the circuit, so allow me please to be quite superficial, and I hope it makes it more interesting. I was quite afraid by the last sentence by Mr. Zampieri because inviting you to apply and saying he will be listening very carefully to what you will say gives me a huge responsibility. I hope nothing will depend from that. As it already happened sometimes in some interviews I did, I prepared some questions, but I fell short because they were all answered before, so we will discover together a different path, which makes it more creative, I hope. This morning, I think you were all here, I was quite impressed by a phenomena which was an egg over a city. It was there, and well, it was a static stuff because it was a photography of a result. It was the white part was the periphery, and the yellow-orange part was the center. And well, I see it more as a dynamic. What happens? I see it more as a dynamic process. With the white part always frying down, while the center remains more or less itself. It's a raw yellow part of an egg. It stays raw. So what I understand of your constant work is that peripheries are actually more energy productive than the center. We have top quality in the center concerning performing arts, but we have top creativity, and top experimentation and top need in the peripheries, which makes a huge work for you because you have to work up and down, and in the same time up, down, because you have a dialogue with the European Commission. You need funding. You need understanding, which I understood is there, but in the same time you have a up and down, an energetic up and down work with the peripheries. So the first question I would ask is about the relation with the European Commission. How is it fundamental? So who's the first to answer now?
I think Marta Martins could be the first one because she's the point of connection between participation and peripheries. So I think the question is specifically for you.
So the first question is more about the funding, actually. How is it fundamental in order to develop your project? What happens if one day there are no more there? What have you to cut out? And what does it eventually take out of your dimension?
The funding from Europe, from
Yes.
Creative Europe specifically. Well, for us it was really fundamental because I'm Marta Martins. I'm the executive director of Arte em Rede, which is a cultural network here in Portugal that is composed by 17 municipalities. So this is a relevant information because a part of the funding of the network it comes from the municipalities. But this means only to fund the structure and the minimum operation of the network. Then we need extra funding for our activities. And during a part of the life of the network, we were trying to find money, especially on national funds. But in a certain moment, we decided that it was a very important dimension of the evolution of the network to become, to have an international context, international work. So we can not only have a peer-to-peer learning between the members of the network, but also to learn from experience similar that happens in other contexts. And that's why, and this was a very important moment, because this changes also the perspective of the network, the future of the network, and the activities that we start to develop locally. So, for instance, participation in BeSpectACTive changed the way we program now, because this idea, this initiative of active spectatorship, the groups of active spectators, is fundamental for the mission of the network. And if, for instance, we don't have this money from Creative Europe to continue, of course it will affect this work with the local community in this dimension of becoming co-programmers.
This is a blackmail for the European Union. Can I ask to answer to your question to two partners that are very
Absolutely.
different scale? I mean, which is the relevance, the impact of this investment from Europe for a small structure like yours, Christian, Café de las Artes in Santander, or for a big structure like yours, Sarah, in Gothenburg?
For us, just the project went directly into the heart of the organization, into the heart of all the activities that we've been done during 13 years we have now, with initiatives with the community, with initiatives in schools, in many aspects. So what BeSpectACTive did was like to be in the heart of this organization and to allow not just with economical support, but with this idea of collaboration, this idea of active spectators, this idea of to make a community around the theater that cares about that, this feeling of pertinence that the community has now more strong than ever with our theater. For me, that's the main.
So let me understand, if there's no more financing by European Union, you cannot do anymore the kind of international collaboration activity.
Well, it's going to be more difficult, but I think there are some roots now that we have grown, that we meet now each other. We can imagine, we can continue imagining projects, imagining proposals. So yes, it's going to be more difficult, but we already have a perspective with this.
Okay, Sarah, I would like to listen also the difficulties that you faced for introducing an experimental project like this in a big theater like yours, not only positive things.
Okay, hello, I'm Sarah, and I'm representing an international festival based in Gothenburg, and also a theater which Luca mentioned. So the festival is hosted by a theater house, and it's a venue of some 500 seats, so it's quite a big presenting venue. And we have a huge program, a yearly program, where we mainly present ready-made work for audiences. So for us, this project has been really important in the way that it's enabled us to reach out and to do other projects outside of the walls of the big institution in the center of Gothenburg. So it's been a way for us to work and to connect with our local audiences and also our local artists in a way that we don't do normally, because the main mission of the theater is to present works for audiences. So for us, the challenge has been to integrate this project within the house of the theater, to translate what we bring with us from all the meetings with the partners and to integrate it and to implement it in the work of the house. Because the institution, I think, per se, the theater institutions or opera or dance for that matter, sometimes have a problem or a challenge to look beyond the walls and the structure of the house. So this project and other similar projects are really important, I think, for the institution as a structure to reach out in different ways. And also, of course, being in the periphery of the European map, this is also very important for Sweden and for the Nordic countries and our part of the Nordic hemisphere to also connect with colleagues, international colleagues, to share experiences and good practices.
And that's the part where I'm more curious, even more than the financial part, which is how does this connection work with the people, with the public, this kind of interaction which goes into professional roles, also choosing the programming of the theaters, doesn't take out a part of the miracle of a show. I mean, normally the public arrives and sees something stimulating the emotions, and if it takes part, if the same public takes part every week into debating and organizing, what does it give more and what does it take out?
Yvonne, I think this question is for you.
What does it give more and what does it give out? Okay. I'm Ivona Kreutzmanova from Tanec Praha, which is also the festival, but also the festival organized in Prague, but also more than 20 other municipalities in the Czech Republic, and the venue, the dance venue, Bonec. So for us, what does it... I was thinking now about totally different things on looking at the picture, but yeah, for me, to be honest, this experience was bringing a lot of feeling to be proud of the communities and the staff members during the COVID time, and then, which was mentioned very separately, during the war which started in Ukraine. And I can tell you that I can see so many strong changes, and as far as we are the country which is very close to Ukrainian border, all of resilience and flexibility we had to show during the COVID time just was forgotten immediately when the war started, and we started to work differently. And I'm very happy that this network was one of you who immediately reacted and started to negotiate the support for Ukrainian artists. And for me, this was also how the communities around our venue are able to react. And for example, I can give an example that we were able to build immediately conditions for some people to live in Prague, to work in the arts, to find a way of surviving. It's not still the way of daily normal life because they are disconnected with their families in Ukraine, and to help. And solidarity was not only inside of the network, but was also very strong inside of the community and staff members of Tanec Praha, and this was for me a very good sign.
This is what it added. Do you want to say a couple
No,
of words more
only
about
to
it?
say you that I'm happy that Ivona underlined this aspect, because you know, when you realize a European project, you have to write everything you will do in future and to preview everything and to create a very strictly budget and to respect it. But together, during our online meetings in February and March of this year, we were saying we cannot look at that without doing anything. So we are proud that 5 or 6 of our partners accepted a small symbolic amount of money from the network and they put some other money by themselves for supporting the presence of Ukrainian artists in Slovakia, in Czech Republic, in Italy, in Croatia, in Belgium. So, and I want also to underline that, for instance, in Belgium, our support was not for Ukrainian artists, it was for Russian dissident artists, because we were thinking that in this time we have also to think on the future of the artists in Russia.
Aren't artists more or less always dissident? But that's another question. Well, I would like to go back into the local dimension of every theater, because you have a local dimension, and through this network you have an international dimension. Local dimension is usually linked with language barriers, and how to overcome the language barriers in order to work internationally without taking out the nature of a theater production.
Kira or Anna, do you want?
My name is Anna Šimončičová, and I represent International Theatre Festival Divadelná Nitra that is held in Slovakia, in a provincial city, and we present here international arts, international theatre. And of course that in history we always had problems to present these international companies to people from Nitra. So this was one of our challenge to engage people from Nitra to international art. And we did it through Active Spectators Board, but we got noticed that we need to make step by step, because when we started to present the big production to local people, they were a little bit afraid of them. But step by step, they started to be more interested in these international companies. And we can see how they allow to visit also our festival. And for example, at the discussions that are organized after every show, they are very active, and they ask different questions, and sometimes we can see that they are more active than professional public. So this is very nice.
Is it more I mean, working with the network, is it more an energy-saving work or a double work sometimes?
So we have no voices.
So would you please say it again?
The participation in a network, does it make more energy-saving part or a double work somehow, because you have to work with the local level and the international level?
I would put it differently. I think we would not have had the capacity to implement certain things if we wouldn't have had the challenge to doing it by having it in the international network. Because I think one thing that is important for us, we always wanted to do a lot of participation in our theater, but we never had the right time to doing it. So when you run a theater, it's always like having projects first, and then you think about how can we open the process. But what came here with the BeSpectACTive network is, okay, now we think first about participation, and then we think about the projects. And I think that would change the whole structure in the theater and in the whole production way of producing.
You are from Vienna, if I'm
sorry,
not wrong.
Sorry,
it's a big city, so if you are talking about periphery, you also bring in peripheries of other countries, which is quite interesting in order to bring it in a city center, which is quite an interesting dynamic given by the network more than by the local level, isn't it?
It is, and also interesting, during the process we moved out of the very center, a little bit in the periphery of Vienna, so we're also dealing with how does it feel to be out of the historic center in Vienna, to be in an area that is perceived as not so central and has also maybe all the things that this area can provide, like space.
Okay, I was willing to step into the argument about peripheries, because I see it as a quite dynamic part of the society, which means it's a constant push out of the part of the society which doesn't cope with the pace imposed by the metropolitan part of the society. So if you want a dialogue with these peripheries, you have maybe to constantly redo a work which is more stressy somehow, because you do a huge work integrating some realities, and then you have to do it again, or to integrate your acquired knowledge in order to go forward, but with newcomers, with new involved people. How does it work in this case?
I don't know, Marta or Zmaya or Katya, do you want to answer to this topic of involving peripheral people?
Which is constantly moving and changing, because you have new arrivals, you have new experiences, new stuff always coming.
Hi, my name is Marta Ladjansky. I'm representing Bakelit Multi-Art Center, which is actually a foundation and a venue which is often open for creative ideas, based in Budapest. And for me it was lovely to see the very first picture, as all of you were sitting on the stairs, and I could spot out most of the people changed at least the hairstyles. But in Bakelit's case, we changed a lot of project managers, so I am the last one who is finishing the project. And as a newcomer in this, I feel that in general, in this performing art, we are talking about peripheries. And especially we have a hard time to the development, whatever it means, through a special focus because of these years we have in the back, how to challenge our audience to come back and stay with us, and even to challenge them to participate. Some of them are frightened on the field of mainly the contemporary dance field, which I think it's on the periphery on a way. It's not part of the education, it's really not in our everyday life. So in Bakelit's case, what I witnessed through this project was more setting questions, how we can be even more creative and even more powerful and even more inviting without any stress and pressure for the audience.
And the engagement of young people, Zmaya, was your focus. How it happened and how was?
Hi, I'm Zmaya from Students' Cultural Center in Novi Sad in Serbia. Well, we work with, our focus is young people. But my question is more like how to outreach the young people that are not involved in activism, in culture, and so on. So it was quite difficult gaining trust in schools, for instance. That's in Serbia something difficult because you need to really have accreditation and like permissions from the ministries and so on. It's not so easy. So we worked through the system of ambassadors, basically. We had a group of young people, like 15, 20 of them. They were quite active. And this is how we reached the goals. But the biggest mystery is how to go further for the next project and to reach those who are not active, who are really disadvantaged, who would say just, why do I need this? I'm not interested, and so on. That's the question.
I don't know what time is it and how much time remains.
5 minutes, but we have 4 of them that I would like to involve, but I think it's important to hear all their voices.
I would ask the question about heritage. Actually, it was asked as a rhetoric question before, but I would like someone to say something about that, because...
okay. Because... For instance, in dance, I mean, we were saying that dance is a peripheral aspect of performing arts sometimes. So how much was difficult the engagement of people in dance?
Hello.
And what remains of these 8 years, I mean?
Hello, I'm Katya from Dance Theatre Ljubljana. Contemporary dance, it's always a tricky performative art, which is usually unreachable to most of the people, and they are afraid of it. So with this project, BeSpectACTive, actually we involved some people who never saw any of the dance performances. with the talks after the performances. So I think we gain quite a lot of interest also from the old people who are regularly now attending either classes or performances, and also with the young generations. So I think this was something which is valuable and would stay for the future. So it is somehow, I think, quite important to do this kind of participatory like projects.
I would like to go back into kind of politics and financing. So who's willing to answer to that?
Okay.
I would like to know, actually, culture can be for cheap. But you need funding if you want to do something which works in terms of involving people, of involving regions, involving, in terms of space and time. You need money, and how to do it without leaving room to the money owners to become the boss. Which I think is not happening with Mr. Zampieri, was listening, but if it could happen that in the European Commission something changes, the role changes, maybe someone else have a different attitude. So how to build the right barriers?
So, okay, I'm Lucia Franchi, Capotrave Kilowatt from San Sepolcro, Italy. I'm not sure I quite understood the questions. You mean what we are going to do without the European?
No, not without. No. I mean, how to receive money without depending of who gives the money.
Okay, it's our job, everyday job, I think, for everybody, and it does not depend on the UA community. It depends on UA community too. It depends on the councils, on the states, on the region we live in, I mean, at least for Italy. And this is difficult because you never are sure about what's next year, next month, next project, next call, and this is quite difficult. Even if you want to keep together a staff, and if you want to keep projects you care about going on and improve. But as it's difficult, as everything is difficult, I mean, it pushes you to do always better, to find new solutions, and to be always prepared about changing. I think that if you work in performance in arts, you always are ready for what's next. Maybe we are the readiest in the world about all the changing around us, because I think it's the deep stuff of our work, of this kind of work.
Okay. The last two of them, and then we finish. Your personal legacy of the project, if you want to tell us.
Thank you, good afternoon.
Can you present yourself first?
I'm Willie White, Director of Dublin Theatre Festival in Ireland's capital city, Dublin. I have so many things to say, but I'll try and be brief. I think this idea of periphery is quite interesting because we speak the English language, so in terms of the Anglophone world, maybe we feel ourselves not to be peripheral and to be somewhat important, I don't know. In terms of our self-image, but in European terms, geographically, we are peripheral, and we are made more peripheral by the behavior of our neighbors in 2016. So for me, to be part of a network is really important, and to be part of a European network is really important. We shouldn't rely on our big neighbor to mediate our cultural life. Something I wanted to add, and it hasn't been spoken of much, is whatever about professionals being mobile, it also has been important for artists to be mobile. And younger artists, because we're talking about the Year of Skills coming up next year. Well, indeed, I think that's a skill. And often younger artists feel they lack confidence because they don't know what is this networking. I always say it's meeting people and talking to them, which most of us can do. But so for us, the legacy, I mean, look, we can't get away from the fact that it was significantly disrupted by 2 years of the pandemic that almost destroyed the project. But thanks to the good relationships and the commitment, you know, we persisted and we did something. So for me, I really have a sense that there's more work to do. It's also difficult to be a festival, and also the size of our organisation and our festival relative to the size of Dublin, which is a city of 1 million people or more, means that it's hard to be visible. So if you're a festival that happens for 18 days every year, that's visible for 3 months, it's hard. But I suppose the lesson that I've taken from it is that I want to work with colleagues in my own city so that we can collaborate together instead of trying to find an audience once a year. Because it's not just about doing something, of course not to tick a box, but it's, sorry, I'll add something. And the other thing is, I suppose, oftentimes when we, also I notice I've changed my hairstyle, I had a moustache in Turin. But it's just good to connect with a more kind of sociological form of thinking about audiences, because I feel in our country, a lot of it's about marketing, which of course is, technical skill that we need to have. But yeah, like any form of travel, you test your ideas with those of your colleagues, and if it's culture, you do so in a friendly way. So it's been a great learning, but I feel there's a lot more to do. That's why we should do another one.
I'm quite surprised because you answered without any question, and I was actually going to ask about the dominance of the English language and if it made effect in this circuit. So you answered, actually.
Okay, let's go to okay. Okay. No, for me, the last question is the legacy for a network as Occitanie Ancienne is in itself. So this project was not only for theaters, festivals, and universities, but it was also for, we had 2 internal networks, and so Occitanie Ancienne is one of them. So how you gather together different communities in different cities and villages?
I would like to have also a concrete something, concrete about how you saw your public grow somehow, how you saw the effects, because there were some changes in 8 years, I suppose.
I'm starting, but after I give you the microphone. I'm Sandrine from Occitanie Ancienne. It's a network in south of France. We are the head of this network. So to be in a project like this one, there's many good reasons, but one very important thing for us is to involve our regional partners, to our own partners, our French partners. And Alice from Théâtre du Grand Rond is one of our partners. Perhaps she can answer to you to your question. You are always with us.
So I'm Alice from Théâtre du Grand Rond in Toulouse, south of France, a partner. So I don't remember the question, but legacy, I think it will be that first of all, one of the big legacy to us was working together for a lot of European partners, but also with 8 partners in France. And we, being with spectators also was amazing, because we have spectators with us that they've never been in the theater before. So we create a new community, and it was very interesting. But the legacy also for us, like a theater and like programming, we also think about programming differently, like to let them program things like maybe we didn't have thinking about programming before. So that's changed the perspective view that what we programmed before. And oh, all right.
Time is a killer.
Okay.
We have been speaking about financing. We have been talking about society. We have been talking about peripheries. I would like to have someone looking somehow from outside at this project and telling us about how he sees it, how he sees it important, where does he see its importance.
Well, I'm not sure I'm from outside, because I'm a partner, so I'm Luis Bonet. I'm the director of the Cultural Management Program at the University of Barcelona.
Yes, I meant outside of the theater activity.
Yes, of course, I'm outside the theater. I'm not a performer. I'm not an artistic director. I'm a researcher. So I think the great interest of this kind of project supported by the Creative Europe program is the capacity to bring together people and institutions and territories have their own dynamics, but they agree to share the same challenge. And it's a challenge in terms of what participation means, active participation means. So there is a lot of sharing experience and learning from the others, and in some cases accepting risk, and that's very important. At the same time, with a quite strict calendar that we prepare in advance, because we have to propose a project to the program, and and this is for 4 years. So we are now at the end of something that we prepared 5 years ago, and which is the legacy of the first BeSpectACTive. So in a way, it's very interesting to see how this evolves, how we are changing, and how we are different than we used to be. But not ourselves only, but our communities and our teams, because this is a team kind of project, and I think that's a very important issue.
Say about the team, actually I have the impression I made an interview to one single person, because you have quite a chorality. It's very nice to see it from outside, in this case, really outside.
Thank you, Diego, for your collaboration on this.
Okay, so we finish with this marvelous idea.
Yes. Okay. First, my question.
No.
Yeah, first mine.
You cannot wait. Okay, for this
okay.
case.
The identity of the perfect partner in a European project. I told you that it was difficult.
But come on, such a strange
No, not
question.
the name of a person, the description of the perfect partner in a European project.
The description of a perfect partner in a European project. May I say that doesn't exist a perfect partner in a European project? Because, you know, what I have learned in this journey is that in the frame of a cooperation project, you change constantly. So every now and then you have new needs, and then, so maybe in this sense, a perfect partner is a partner that is fluid in a way, so that is open to the changes. As a partner with who you have to fight, because conflict, I think, in a cooperation project is always good, but it's a conflict for growing, so not for leaving things in silence, but for having, you know, confrontations, for discussing, for having dynamic dialogues, for growing. Then, of course, reporting is very important, we know. And then another aspect is maybe a perfect partner has to drink good wine, so good nights can be spent together. Okay. And yeah, serious and crazy at the same time, I would say. This is the two main characteristics.
Okay.
Are you satisfied for this question?
Good answer.
Okay. I have also my question for you. I want to speak about proudness. So it's quite different from yours. So considering that proudness is a kind of a personal way to perceive the reality or a cooperation process or so on. So which are the things of which you are really proud? And which are the things of which you are not proud of, so that you were trying to take aside? This is difficult, so you know, this was the challenge.
Yeah, it is. I'm proud of the way in which we face the difficulties. I mean, you were saying the pandemic, and I thought was really touching for me the moment in where we were doing this battle for the future, trying to find a way for protecting the artists and to continue our cooperation, and also the Ukrainian crisis
and the way in which we try to find a solution. But also, I remember the first crisis of this project 8 years ago when we started in Turin, and we were around the table, and the majority of the partners were saying, but we don't want to do a project like this. We don't want to do something giving all this power to audience, to citizens, to people. And so, crisis after crisis, I'm proud that we found a way to proceed and to discover also that differences can be the richness of the project, because for sure I was wrong when at the beginning I was thinking that we had the format and we had to apply format. And I'm proud to have understood, thanks to all of you, that differences and changes can enrich something and not empower. And what was the second?
What you are not proud of?
What I'm not proud of my closeness sometimes, of my idea that we had to respect timing and things to be done. And of course, when you have to lead a project, sometimes you cannot be relaxed as you would like. And so sometimes I'm not happy of myself on some reactions, some limits that I had, of course. Okay, time of the picture.
Yeah, time of the picture. And I just want to say the last really thing. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think that this was the best partnership that was possible for doing this kind of experimentation. So, yeah. Such a pity to close here, but yeah. Let's do the picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Who takes